You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to our recap of day one of the third test in Rajkot between India and England. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Dan Weston. How are you doing, Dan?
Yeah, I am well, Jack. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. It was one of those days, opening days to a test match, which for a fairly large period of the day you thought was going to be relatively unnotable in the at least the near-term history of the game. It was very much a setup day. And then Sarfaraz came in, went ballistic, and the last hour was actually really engaging. And it's given us quite a lot to talk about. So I'm energized after that. Before we get into Sarfaraz and Rohit and Jadeja and England's really good start to the day and a discussion about where this test might go, just a reminder to everybody to click like and subscribe to the Cricket Podcast on whichever platform you're listening on or watching on. And if you're on YouTube, why don't you say hello in the comments? Let's see who's out and about. We should also say, Dan, that we've got a little project underway, haven't we? And so people should keep an eye out over the next few days for us dropping the first 3 episodes of a new podcast that we're going to be launching called Strike Rate, the Cricket Analytics Podcast. We've recorded 2 of those 3, and we'll be getting together over the next few days to do the next. So, maybe have a look at Dan's Twitter at SA Advantage for an update on that. Or if you want a little, what do you mean when are we lads? We can say whatever we want. It's our podcast.
First release date.
Oh, the first release date. Yeah, we're aiming for the 20th of February. So that's next Tuesday, the day after this test match ends. So, exciting times. If you do want a quick preview or a little preview of the first episode, you can sign up as a Patreon, patreon.com/the cricket pod. We're looking for a little bit of feedback on that. And generally, I don't want to blow too much smoke up ourselves, Dan, but generally the feedback's been really positive so far. So, keep an eye out and get involved when that drops. I'm going to summarize the day, Dan, then I'm going to ask you a question, then I have to go and get a charger for my laptop before it dies. So here's what happened in the morning session. England with the ball looked quite dangerous. It had a kind of greenish tinge to it in the first hour or so of the day, and Anderson and Wood looked pretty dangerous. Wood managed to break through, picking up the dangerous Jaiswal, removing Shubman Gill, and then when Hartley got one to kick kind of weirdly out the surface to get rid of Patidar, it looked like India were in major trouble at 33 for 3. But the 2 old timers, the old stagers, the veterans, Jadeja and Rohit, came together and were excellent. Played with loads of control, did exactly what they needed to do, scored at a reasonable rate, didn't take the game away from England necessarily with a scoring rate, but the manner in which they played put England under a lot of pressure. A couple of 100 runs later, England finally got Rohit enter Sarfaraz Khan. We've been waiting a long time to see this guy in action. He comes to the crease, and it's immediately obvious he belongs at this level. Scores a brilliant 60 before Jadeja runs him out, and we'll talk about that in a lot of detail. And then eventually, England end the day. Well, England end the day. India end the day 330 odd for 5. I desperately need to get my charger. The question for you, Dan, is: are you happy to finally have seen Sarfaraz Khan playing Test match cricket? Because he's got to be the story of day one.
Yeah, I'm happy to see him play Test cricket, of course, because it's finally an endorsement of all the runs that he scored at domestic level. And what more can he have done? He banged the door down, literally smashed it down. He took a pickaxe to the door before he got selected. And then to come in and play in the fluent way that he did was just really, really great to see. And I'm pretty sure fairly sure that he would have kicked on and got a debut 100 the way he was batting if it wasn't run out in a rather unfortunate fashion.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I mean, obviously I've seen a little bit of him in the IPL, but I wouldn't say he had exactly a storied career in that tournament. And I think the last time we saw him, he was getting bumped out by Mark Wood, and maybe actually looked a little bit out of his depth if you take that game in isolation. Here though, I don't think he could have looked more at home, particularly against the spin, playing things late, manoeuvring the ball really well. And then if you overpitched, he banged you back down the ground or swept, hard through square. It was really aggressive as well. I mean, he reminded me, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. He reminded me a little bit of a right-handed Rishabh Pant in the way he went about his innings, not just sort of in the ferocity, but also in some of the shots he played.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, it was perhaps also a sign of what India have missed with the absence of Pant, and also the inability or unwillingness to pick Sarfaraz over such a long period of time. I think someone from your account tweeted about basically every professional cricketer in India had a go at being picked before he got his chance. Yeah, it's just so good to see someone come in and grab his chance with both hands, and it's inspiring really for someone who you see obviously has had a lot of hurdles to get over in his career in terms of recognition, to actually finally get some recognition and then convert it and look so at home on the big stage.
It's also a little bit of a win for people who value numbers over the eye test, because the only logical reason that they wouldn't have gone to him by now is that he is failing somebody's eye test. 4,000 runs approximately in first class cricket. So go on.
I think they need to get glasses then.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought. He's got about 4,000 runs in first class cricket. And this was mentioned loads on the commentary. Average is 70. But the strike rate as well, 70.1. Or 71 rather, is really impressive. I mean, it must just be so easy for him at the level below this. Awesome stuff. I liked as well. We got a few good shots of him and his dad. They look quite similar, don't they? And I liked his dad's jacket. I don't know if you saw it with cricket is the gentleman's game, and with gentleman crossed out and everyone's written underneath it, which I thought was the pair of them were just having such a good time, it seemed. And it was a heartwarming story. It is bonkers. I mean, I think I was the one who tweeted that India have basically played every professional cricketer in India before they've gone to Sarfaraz, but it's actually not true. But we've had Patidar, we've had Sky, we've had Ishan Kishan, we've had various iterations of KL Rahul. Shubman Gill's been in there, Shreyas Iyer, obviously. Rahane came back, and I think that's like basically just the last year that India have preferred those players at various stages for what's probably a pretty similar role to the one that Sarfaraz is going to slot in at. So yeah, look, it is one innings. You never know. Maybe there is some sort of glaring weakness there that will be exposed in international cricket. But it was quite hard over those 60, 70 balls to see exactly what it was that was keeping me out of the team. It was, though, Dan, quite funny when Jadeja ran him out, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't funny for Sarfaraz. It was horrendous bit of running. I mean, like, it's difficult to really kind of describe what went on if anyone hasn't seen it. But look, for me on the TV at least, it looked like he got completely sold. Jadeja looked like he called for the run and then decided to change his mind when Sarfaraz was, a third of the way down the pitch, and then Dorrit hit obviously from Mark Wood, I think it was. So just felt so sorry for him because he deserved so much more. And then to rub matters in even more, about a couple of minutes later, Jadeja gets 100 and brings the sword out after looking a little bit. Oh my
god! I honestly couldn't believe it. It was a couple of minutes later. It was the next ball. Like the next ball, Jadeja just knocks one around the corner, gets to the other end, and you can literally see his brain going, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do this. And then he does the sword, but in a really kind of sad and weak-wristed. Normally it's quite it's quite a feat, quite a feat of athleticism Jadeja's sword, but it looked more like me doing the sword when when he did it after he got that time. Interesting one. I think you tweeted about this, about how milestones can affect decision making. Do you think that's, well, I'm assuming that's what you think was going on there when Jadeja ran him out?
Yeah, I think that it's difficult to think anything else, considering there was quite a noticeable slowdown before he got the 100 as well. And I think that generally that issue is quite prevalent in cricket still. I mean, look, there's quite a few instances where this has happened. I remember there was a Big Bash game a couple of years ago. I think James Vince was on 99 and his team needed, like, I don't know, 1 run to win or something like that. And he was at the crease. And this is, vaguely what happened. AJ Ty bowled like I can't remember, it was like a mega wide or a mega knowing.
It was,
yeah. I mean, a lot of people did sort of think it was potentially done to annoy Vince. I mean, he looked absolutely distraught. I remember.
Yeah. He was going to the Big Bash final, and he looked like he was about to cry because somebody bowled a wide, which meant he couldn't get 100.
I mean, just like been all that stuff, and also a few people replied on that tweet as well, saying, getting run out is attempting a quick single to get someone 100. Or just getting run out full stop, attempting to get a quick single, is like the risk reward is just like never there.
Yeah,
really value in it at all.
Yeah, I mean, like any run out is, maybe not any run out, because sometimes you get freak dismissals and stuff like that. But
yeah, of course,
in Test cricket, where there's no compulsion to score most of the time, being run out is kind of a weird thing to happen. It's happened 3 times with Jadeja in this series. Obviously himself batting to potentially win the first test, runs himself out, but earlier in that test he ran out Ashwin as well after Ashwin came to the crease. So maybe something to work on there, to bear in mind. Rohit's reaction to it was pretty funny as well. That got replayed on the television broadcast a couple of times, launching his hat into the floor when he realised what had happened. Aside from that, though, Dan, it was a pretty good innings from Jadeja. It feels almost harsh to talk about something he's done wrong after he has been instrumental in bringing India well back into this match and probably putting them in a winning position at the end of day 1.
100%. And what I really liked tactically, and I mentioned it, I think, when we did a pod on the previous test, was that India have put him up the order. And I think it's because they want to get left-right combo in at the fall of the 3rd wicket. And that will disrupt England's spin plans. But obviously England have bowled a lot of spin in all of the test matches so far. Probably a little bit less today than has previously been the case. But still, England bowled 50 overs of spin and possibly could have done more if they didn't have left-right combo to bowl out for such a long period of time. So I think if 2 righties had gone to the crease together, Rohit and then the next guy in, probably would have been Sarfaraz. We might have seen a little bit more of Hartley bowling left arm spin to the 2 right-handers, but India kind of went with the left-right combo, promoting Jadeja, did it before, and I think that's just a really good tactical move. And England didn't really look like they had the answers to cope with it after a great start.
Yeah, it did. It did look a little bit like that. I think it did flatten out a little bit, and we had that effect again. And we've talked about it a few times. I think it's definitely one of the themes in this series. That England actually today played pretty well, but India also played pretty well. And in that scenario, India are going to win because the relative difference, especially in these conditions, is such that it just presents a skill gap to England's bowlers that they basically aren't able to overcome. And I know that there were a couple of chances. Root probably should have taken one off Rohit, and there there were a couple of LBWs that on review would have been out, but actually live you could kind of see why they didn't take the review. But in a sense, in any 200-run partnership, there are going to be moments where you say, well, if that happened, they'd have been out. Like it's very much how the game sort of works. And I thought, I thought this was another really good example of that. Having said that, and we were talking about this just before the show, I don't think this has been a disastrous day for England. Like I think it's really clear that India are in control of this match. But before the match, India were in control of the match. Like if you look at who was most likely to win at 9 o'clock this morning in Rajkot, it was, India were a 66% favourite, and now they're about a 75% favourite. And whilst England after the start would have liked to have closed that gap and maybe be finishing day one with the match 50-50, maybe even better. I think relative to the two abilities of these sides, it's not the worst day one we could have seen from a neutral point of view, and it's not the worst day one we could have seen from an England point of view. And it's a pretty decent but not match winning day one from an India point of view. I don't know what your thoughts are. I mean, obviously that's a little bit of there's a little bit of an explanation required to get to that conclusion, but yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a few ways you can frame it. I think when we recorded previous pods, we discussed about how India are going to have to play badly and England are going to have to play well for this series to be competitive. And I think this is what happens when a couple of the India batters do well and they get that 200 partnership and get them to a close 330 odd for 5. Look, for me though, I think India will be the happier of the two teams going into the dressing room. I definitely was cheering Kuldeep Yadav on in his 10 balls as a night watchman because I didn't want the 6th wicket to fall, so then the English media could say that it was a good day for England or claiming some moral victory or something completely unrealistic when you get one of them as a night watchman. For me, and I've said this in a previous pod as well, the thing for now for India is they've got to kick on. They've got to get mileage into the England bowlers' legs, particularly Anderson and Wood, and they've got to just kick on and try and get 500 plus here. I really think that would just set the game up to be, in India's pocket. Basically, I do think that England wouldn't be able to cope with, any chase over 250, 300 on day 5, for example, and potentially they could be chasing a lot more than that. India got their runs at a pretty decent rate, just under four runs over the day. So that's accelerated the game a little bit as well. I'm sure England will be looking to outdo that. So I think that takes the draw out of the equation to some large extent. India now got to get 500. The only way England can get back into this test match, in my opinion, is if they bowl India out or make huge inroads into India in the first session tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. We're going to take a really quick break, then we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about Rohit Sharma's innings because we've ignored him completely. Maybe a little bit about Mark Wood as well. He had a good day. And we had a few questions in from Twitter. So we'll be back in 2 seconds.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Cricket Podcast for part 2 of our day 1 wrap of the third test between England and India. A reminder to everybody that you need to follow the Cricket Podcast on whichever audio app you're listening on. Tell your friends as well. There's been a little bit of a lack of buzz around this series. I think that's because it's on TNT on the TV, which is like the third choice broadcaster in some ways. And then on the radio, it's also on TalkSport, which is a lot of cricket fans. That's not necessarily the first choice that they would go to or think of when they're following Test cricket. So we're left. It's just us. It's just a few podcasts. We need to get the word out that it's quite a good series. So do that. Dan said we would talk about Rohit Sharma. He'd been quiet in the series so far, but this is what he can do, isn't it? It's It's a really good innings.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think he's put a few of the doubts that I had in my mind about his ability to play long innings in Test cricket a little bit to bed with this. Looked very assured, and I don't think you can underestimate as well how difficult it is for him and Jadeja to rebuild from 33 for 3. Woods taken out a couple of early wickets, looked threatening. Patidar played I don't know, did it kick up a bit? I don't know, from Hartley. It was very soft dismissal. Looked soft, very soft anyway. And the mental fortitude and concentration that you need to score a ton from that situation as captain as well, knowing that your wicket is absolutely prize wicket for the opposition is pretty considerable. And I think we have to take our hat off to Rohit today.
Yeah, I think it was sort of a demonstration of what he is able to do when he gets in. It was an interesting way he got out, and we'll move on to Wood now, I think. Then that he did sort of fall into one of the world's most obvious traps, trying to hoik Wood away. What did you make of Wood today? I mean, clearly the pick of the England bowlers. England decided to go with two seamers. There's quite a lot going on there, but it paid off to some extent with his performance.
Yeah, I think with Wood here, you get what you was expected. He's not going to hold an end up like potentially that Anderson will go in for sub-3 economy. He's going to go for boundaries, but he's going to take wickets as well. And I think we saw that. He's that strike bowler, and I think that as well. That was cool for me. I didn't even though results didn't necessarily reflect this. I didn't like England's decision to use Wood as the sole pacer in that first test, because he's an impact pacer. He's not able to bowl long spells or hold up an end. He's someone who you want as an X factor. But with X factor, you have that trade off. You're going at 4s probably, or not far off that. But you're going to take wickets as well. But you can only really have one of those in your team. And I think that with Anderson's control and Wood's X factor, England have probably got the right blend here.
Yeah, I think certainly for this pitch, I think they selected the right team. I mean, India also made some level of a call to drop Akshar Patel. Obviously, that meant that they could keep Kuldeep in the side. My take on that, just to cover the India selection, was that's probably a good decision based on what we've seen in this series so far and the surface that's been rolled out. I would rather, if I was Rohit Sharma, have Kuldeep's left arm leg spin than Akshar's left arm off spin, assuming Jadeja, I think we can probably assume this after today, assuming Jadeja's fit enough to bowl decent spells. I don't know if you disagree.
No. I'm all on board with that as well.
Cool. A few questions from Twitter then to round off the show. Chris TB, who is, I guess, South African because there's South African flags in his Twitter handle. With Bedingham and Khan finally getting a go after years of people calling for their inclusion, who, in your opinion, are the most overlooked first-class batters yet to represent their national test sides? So, pretty tough question. You need a good knowledge there.
Yeah, as far as overlooked players go, I think that there's players who've got the ability, but have had other hurdles that they've had to overcome to some degree. Certainly, I think that Sarfaraz was the number one candidate before today. Sure. I don't really think that there's anyone in England who's completely smashing down the door who you can say it's like really not right that they're not picked. You can probably he did play in the end, but there was a Pakistan player, I can't remember his name. He had a really weird technique. And
that's going to drive me mad. I know exactly what you mean. He batted 6 for them, didn't he? And he had the China ball technique.
And he was like doing Sarfaraz things at domestic level before the opportunity several years back. Fawad Alam, Chatil has just said, and Rohit Iyer has just said as well in the chat. Thanks guys. Those are the sort of guys. Then you've got someone like someone like Will Pekowski, who has played one Test match and done really well at first class level, but he's had the concussion issues and stuff like that for Australia. So there's a few players who you've got good track records who haven't really had much of an opportunity. But there's, I think with Fawad Alam and Sarfaraz as well, there's that aesthetics issue in terms of Fawad Alam's technique. Sarfaraz is quite a stocky guy, and just brings me back to the old Moneyball quote: "We're not selling jeans here, you know. This is not a. This is. I don't care about stuff like that." And you know, people say the same stuff about Azam Khan shouldn't be playing and stuff like that in T20. But the guy's got good numbers. The guy performs well. What more do you actually want?
Well, I don't know. Maybe him to look really fit. Maybe like Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
Give me a stocky guy with power over a fit guy who can't hit the boundaries and all day long.
Yeah, Nakul says, should Jadeja, Nakul Pandey, who's been on the show actually, should Jadeja have kept running and sacrificed himself?
I think that they wouldn't have crossed by the time that happened, possibly. But I think there was more chance of me winning the lottery on Saturday, sorry, I should say, than that happening.
Well, the Jadeja running himself out on 99. Yeah, I think that probably does represent a little bit of a long shot. Dan, looking forward to the rest of the test. I mean, I think we're both in agreement that England are in the backseat, India in control. 326 for 5 is where India stand. What does good look like from here? What does average look like from here? And what does England are back in the game look like from here? If we're being realistic about all three scenarios.
Okay, good for India is anything like over 470 plus, I think. Average 430, 440. England back in the game sub 400.
Yeah,
and I don't think they're really back in the game. They're still big underdogs at that point. But I think what I'm trying to say is anything over sort of 440, 450 for India and England have basically got no chance of winning. They got as much chance of winning as Jadeja running himself out at 99 on purpose.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I mean, I know England did get 400 once in this series, but it took like the knock of a generation for that to happen. And England have batted well in the other games or in their other innings as well. But England batting well is like 280. So I mean, even if India scored no more runs, and assuming that this pitch holds up like it was, like it played today, England still would probably be 50-50 to get to this score, I would say. Like I think even at this point, India have a reasonable grip on the game. They've got 5 wickets left. Jadeja's on 100. Still got Ashwin to come. Still got Jarrell. If they can scrape together another 130, you're looking at another black swan event from an England point of view for England to get parity, which is sort of what they probably need to do, or even to get within 100. I reckon
that's the key amount. 100 for me. Anything more, if India get anything more than sort of 430, 440, England have got but the upper areas of expectation to be within 100 after the first innings. And that's still, they're still massively behind the game if they're 100 behind or 90 behind on first innings. Yeah,
cool. We're going to wrap it up there. That's a nice half an hour. We'll be back tomorrow lunchtime. I think it's Max and I. Dan, you're welcome to join us if you want to, but you do have a job.
I've got a hospital appointment as well.
Oh, okay. So do join us then, and we'll be with you for the rest of this test match. So do make sure you're hitting that like button. Make sure you're hitting subscribe. Keep our audience growing. Keep us happy. Keep yourselves happy. And let's enjoy this test match. It looks like it's set up, or it could be set up to be quite a good one. Goodbye.